Welcome to Food Psych, a podcast about intuitive eating, body positivity, and health at every size. I'm your host, Christy Harrison, and I'm a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and certified intuitive eating counselor specializing in weight-inclusive wellness. Join me as I talk with interesting people from all walks of life about their relationships with food.
I remember I was teething, little gums bleeding, cried every evening, it was all about eating. When I became a teen, it was all about beef, and now I'm ready for the world. Try and sink my teeth in, stacking it.
Hey there, welcome to episode 86. My guest today is the amazing Dianne Bondy, who many of you may know from her yoga classes online. She's a body positive yoga teacher and activist and social justice warrior, and just a really, really cool person. And I can't wait for you to hear our conversation because we got into some amazing, far-ranging topics around body positivity and social justice and her own recovery from disordered eating as well. So I can't wait to share that with you in just a moment. First, I want to let you know about a super exciting new thing that I'm doing. I finally, after much thought and consideration, launched a private Facebook group for Food Psych listeners. So this is a free group, and you can connect with other Food Psych listeners from around the world, and it's just been a couple days since I launched it, and already we have so many amazing conversations going there, people introducing themselves and sharing their stories, and I would love to connect with you in there and hear your stories. So you can join by going to christyharrison.com/community. That's christyharrison.com/community, and that will redirect you to the Facebook page where you can request to join the group and connect with like-minded people from all around the world. We're brought to you today, as usual, by my online intuitive eating course, which you can find at christyharrison.com/course. That's christyharrison.com/course. And it's a 13-week course to teach you all the principles of intuitive eating in depth and work through and troubleshoot some of the common areas where I see people getting stuck. One big one is the diet mentality. There's also body image and relationship with exercise and movement, where people tend to get stuck. And then making peace with food and challenging the food police are also kind of complex and long-term practices that I think people really benefit from having support around. So in the 13-week online course, I give the same tools and techniques that I use with my one-on-one clients, but in a group setting, so you get the benefit of support from your fellow course participants in the private Facebook group. And I also do a monthly Q&A podcast that some participants have said really makes the course feel like one-on-one coaching. So you'll get my voice answering your questions every month. And I participate also in the Facebook group along with all your fellow participants. It's about 100 people now in there giving their perspectives. And it's just a really nice community of supportive people helping each other. So come join us at christyharrison.com/course and learn more and sign up today. Finally, if you like the podcast and want to help us reach more people, you can leave a great rating and review on iTunes. That helps get the word out about the podcast. So if you've benefited from these body positive messages and you like what you hear, please pay it forward and help other people find us by going to iTunes from either your computer or the podcast app on your phone. So I guess it's not iTunes on your phone, it's the podcast app, the purple app. And then type Food Psych into the search bar wherever you are and click on the result that comes up under podcasts, and then you can click on the ratings and reviews tab and leave your nice rating and review there. And it's really a public service because it helps other people discover these messages and helps push back against diet culture in that way, because we're really spreading a different message of body positivity and health at every size. So now, without any further ado, let's go talk to Dianne Bondy. I spoke with her via Skype from her home in Ontario, Canada. So tell me about your relationship with food growing up.
I had a very difficult relationship with food. I had a father who had a real big connection to body image and had a real concrete idea of what I should look like. And when I didn't really fit that ideal for him, which is like the mainstream ideal, he started taunting me with it and, restricting it and things like that. So I started right out of the gate with, I believe, an unhealthy relationship with food. And, when I started out in life, when you're a kid and your mom makes you food and it's this way of comfort and love and all this kind of stuff. And then when my dad started picking on me for my appearance, my relationship with food started to evolve and become negative. It didn't become something that showed love or something that was sustaining or something that was enjoyable. It became something that was going to lead to me being picked on. So it turned pretty quickly for me around, I would say, 8 years old.
Wow. That's so young to become aware of those kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
You don't really get much of a childhood, right?
No, and it's funny. I do a lot of Reiki. That's my self care. And it starts with a chat, and then we work on whatever things I want to clear from my body through the energy that I'm retaining around those feelings. And every now and again, I like to check back in with my feelings around food and then observe when I check back in and have any issues cleared, if I get triggered or whatever. I like to come back and see how the Reiki, how my meditation, how my yoga practice has changed my perspective. Because at one point, food was love. And then at another point, food wasn't love. And that's always kind of, for me anyway, under the surface. So I live with this heightened awareness of how I'm feeling in that moment, which I think is good, because being in the moment is what I always want. I don't want to be living in the past, and I don't want to be jumping to the future. I just want to be here now. So it's an interesting relationship, to say the least.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's sort of this dance that's ongoing for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how did it sort of evolve over time? Like that started when you were 8. Did you descend further into like a full-blown eating disorder? Was it always sort of under the surface?
I descended into a full-blown eating disorder, was in treatment for quite a long time, and in treatment in a time where I think people were not as educated or aware. I was at a McMaster University facility here. I live in Canada, in Hamilton, and I was in an eating disorders like focus group clinic with my sister, because both of us had developed this eating disorder and we were competing with each other.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And so we ended up in treatment together. And it was funny. We had a psychiatrist come in and say, well, we just need to get over this. And that's what he said, just
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
I know this is, but this was 1980, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. Early days of eating disorder treatment. So,
But right. What is this nonsense? Let's just get over it. And I was just like,
oh,
and at the time, I think I was 17 and my sister was 14. And I'm just like, is that how this works? We just get, you don't even know how to process that, right? Like you just don't even know what to do with that. But that always strikes in my mind, the way he just was like, what do you mean? Just stop. I was just like, when I look back at the ways we treated a lot of things in the early 80s and when we didn't know what we were doing, I'm just like, I cringe to think of the damage we continued to do, just unaware. Just we have no idea what we're doing. So we're just making it up as we go along. So I'm grateful for all the strides that have been made around this, and that we can have podcasts that talk about it, and that it's out there in the open, and we can be honest, and people can share their stories, and we can see what's going on in people's lives, because that was hard.
yeah. It sounds like he really did not get it.
Oh my gosh. It was just like, get over it. Like,
Ugh.
seriously.
Right. Which is sort of the type of message that you hear from just lay people, like who don't
Yes.
understand eating disorders at all, not someone in a treatment facility.
Exactly. With a degree in psychiatry or whatever it is he was doing. But I wonder what he thinks about now and how many people he said that to.
I know. That's a good question. Like, because those things are so damaging. Like that lasts, right? I mean, that was years ago, and that's still in there. That's still in your psyche.
Absolutely. Up to 30 plus years ago. So
Wow.
it's trauma, right? If it's still in
Yep.
my psyche.
Yep. Absolutely. Did that set you back a lot?
Mhm.
That treatment? Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't even treatment, because that just pushed me deeper. I'm like, how dare you tell me I'm a teenager. How dare you
Right.
tell me get over it? I'll show you, right? So yeah, that was not a good situation. But I went off to university, and I found that's where I found people understood, and I found the most help there.
Mm. Yeah. Did you work with a therapist or dietitian?
Yeah. Yeah, all of the above.
Nice.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that form of treatment, especially when it sounds like you're pretty deep in the eating disorder, it was important to have that treatment team.
Oh, yeah. It was amazing. And it was offered on campus, and it was talked about on campus, and it was free. Well, I live in Canada, so we have socialized medicine, so everything is covered, but it was nice to have those resources right on site.
Absolutely. And yeah, probably very little stigma around seeking treatment if they were talking about it on campus.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so what did that look like in the early days of recovery?
I really liked being part of that because it's hard to talk about. And there's always, I find, comfort and strength in numbers when you come together. So in the early days, it was quite the flip from just get over it, right? Because that's where I came from before, and them saying and I had said that to them when I was in treatment. I was like, so here's what my psychiatrist therapist slash says from McMaster University. Like, I don't what is this? Let's just do this. And they were like, yeah, sometimes people don't understand what they're dealing with. And maybe they were new to the program and didn't quite get it. So hopefully they get training. But it was really supportive. I made lifelong friends in that group. And I was just grateful for the resource. When I think about the accessibility now, I just wish that everything were that available. But it's just having the courage to step up and step into it and understand. I think that's the hardest part without either an intervention or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to be there and sort of hear people.
And be ready.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to hope that that is more widespread now, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to say, right? I just think I've been dealing with some form of disordered eating for a better part of my life. And I talk a lot about this when I teach workshops on empowerment or yoga. And I say to people, I truly believe that if you're a woman in North America, and I'm starting to believe a woman anywhere in the world at this point, that we're trained to have disordered eating. We are trained from a very young age with the messaging we get from the media, with the messaging that we get from our parents, with how we talk about bodies in general, how people feel really, really comfortable commenting on other people's bodies, shaming people in public. Like, how can you not develop some kind of disordered thinking or disordered eating when the messages are implicit, are complicit, and are constant? So it seems to me that if you're not fully aware of the messages that are out there constantly telling you, you're not good enough, it's very easy. And I run into it all the time. Like, I'm heading out to do a workshop later today, and they sent me a text message and they said, hey, I just wanted to let you know or ask you, do you have any dietary restrictions? And to me, that's a very much an ED word, right?
Totally.
And so it just for a minute, I look at it and I go, dietary restrictions. And I text her back and I say, no, I will eat anything and I will eat everything and I will enjoy it. Da, 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 da. And she texted me back. She's like, I'm so excited to hear you say that, because, I find with the culture of wellness right now, and sometimes in the yoga community, there is a connection with yoga and being a vegetarian or being a vegan in a non-harming or ahimsa, non-violent diet. And I think people pursuing that's great for them. As a person who's in recovery from an eating disorder, when I dip into those types of activities of certain food restrictions, it's a trigger. So for me, I eat mindfully. I eat hopefully in a way that my food is prepared from a place of nonviolence. However, but I don't restrict. And I find that it's easy to slip into those types of patterns when yoga philosophy, the philosophy of yoga also connects to that dietary restriction, right? So it's a fine line depending on who you are that can potentially turn into a problem.
Yeah, that's so well said. I think about that a lot because when I was, I had an eating disorder as well. And when I was recovering in the early days, I started practicing yoga, and that was a huge part of my recovery. But I also stumbled into some teachers who really kind of hammered on the idea of ahimsa and being vegan, and were sort of selling that to us like this is a part of being a true yogi, or that's how I perceived it anyway, and so that message was really difficult for me to grapple with. And I really sort of feel like it showed me, it was like an important mirror or step in my recovery that I kind of like heard and saw that and was sort of triggered by it, but I didn't actually go there because part of me knew that would drive me further back into the eating disorder. So I didn't do it. And I think was stronger for it to like get those messages and be like, nope, you know what, ahimsa. And my way of framing it too was like, ahimsa, non-harm, extends to me also. And if I'm
Yeah.
harming
Yeah.
myself in the process, that's not in the spirit of ahimsa. So that was sort of a helpful way to frame it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder how many people, because one of the first things that you kind of spiral into is that dietary restriction. And it's so easy to go there. And I'm with you on that. Like when I talk about ahimsa, I talk about or nonviolence. Nonviolence has to start at home, the same way charity has to start at home, and the path to empowerment has to start at home. So it has to start within. And it's not going to work for everybody. And I find that sometimes the yoga community can be very judgmental and can really push this dogma really hard, almost like we're pushing a religion without understanding the impact that it has on its students, which is also ahimsa. When I'm pushing what my beliefs are that may not line up with what's best for you, that's that teacher creating harm on the mat. And the first tenet we take in the yoga practice as teachers is to do no harm. So it really and truly is a fine line. And I wish more yoga teachers were informed around this, because it can be damaging for those of us like you and me who are able to identify what that is and say, okay, this part isn't for me, and I'm not, it may be a trigger, but it's not going to lead me down a path. Others, it may not, because sometimes we hold teachers or professors or anybody we deem that are in authority in a higher regard, that they're actually going to know what's better for us than we do for ourselves. So we are really quick to give away our power in those situations. And I think it's a big step toward empowerment when you can say, I understand what you're saying. I understand what the philosophy is. But like you said, ahimsa starts with me. It also extends to me. And I can't extend ahimsa to anybody else in a real, authentic, and sustainable way if I don't start with ahimsa with myself. And that may mean that I cannot fully participate in this particular aspect of the philosophy because it's damaging to my being.
Yes. I love that. That's very well said. It just popped into my head as you were saying that too, that a lot of religions and philosophies have some version of that practice, that like it starts at home, it starts with you. And, I'm thinking of some of my clients who are Jewish who like fasting on Yom Kippur is a tradition in Jewish culture, obviously Jewish religion, but if you have an eating disorder, fasting is contraindicated. And there's like a super seamless, I think for many of the people I've worked with anyway, seamless way of dealing with that. Like just talk to your rabbi and say, I have an eating disorder. Can I fast or should I fast? And, the ones that I've heard about are like, no, don't do it. There's sort of a dispensation for people who would do harm to themselves through this process. And you don't have to participate in that aspect of the tradition. So there's like versions of that. And then there's, metta, loving kindness, also involves you. It's like about having loving kindness for yourself and for the world and for people you love and people you don't love, sort of everyone in between, right?
Yeah. And I think that's so important, because what I teach when I teach empowerment and self-love is that if you don't love yourself, how are you going to love anybody else? Right. So if you can't be kind and have a perspective of nonviolence to yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to live fully in that understanding. So I'm glad to hear that religions will make adjustments for people, because sometimes people are pretty militant in their beliefs, and they're not willing, and they're willing to cast you out because you're not a vegan, or they're willing to cast you out without understanding what all the implications are for you. And I always say this about yoga, as much as I love it and it saved me. When humans get a hold of something spiritual, our particular filters or experiences of life inform the way we see the practice, or inform in the way we teach the practice, and sometimes to the detriment of that practice, right? So it can be very challenging, especially if your students are really willing to give away their power to you very easily. There's a good opportunity to do some real damage.
Yeah, that's such a good point that, it's kind of putting people at the mercy of whatever interpretation the teacher has of the philosophy, and it's being filtered through their own lens. And unfortunately, it is oftentimes a disordered view of food and body, because body size too. I think there's this judgment on like what a yogi should look like, right? And
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
something that people communicate unconsciously to their students without even realizing it, just in those little phrases they might use throughout the class.
It's true. And it's funny because if you're teaching from a place of awareness, you don't know who's in front of you and you don't know what people's life experiences are. And to make a judgment about a student that you're teaching to based on an aesthetic, based on what they look like, is not teaching from a place of ahimsa, which is the first tenet, or B, awareness, right? Which is what yoga asks of us. So this is an ongoing problem. Like I have seen disordered eating become chronic within the yoga practice with the mainstream media images that we're perpetuated with constantly by what a yogi looks like. Because as we know, a yogi is generally, according to mainstream culture, a woman. She's usually young. She's usually able-bodied. She's usually fair-skinned or Caucasian, and she's usually hypermobile, right? And this is the imagery that we've been seeing since yoga had its boom in 1990, whatever. And it's been perpetuated up to a point, but I've really watched the body positive movement evolve and evolve within the yoga community, right? So we see it gain traction, in 2014, 15, 16, where people are like pushing back against these mainstream images and calling up publications or media outlets that continue to perpetuate this really narrow aesthetic that's really linked to the fashion industry. Really linked to the fashion industry, which is so damaging for all of us, including the environment, and really just making yoga a function of beauty and not a function of spirituality. And I mean, it has so many healing properties. And there's an article or a study that came out possibly 6 months ago, maybe longer, that was on, I think it was Yoga University published the study around how yoga can help start to cultivate a positive body image, like what happens in the practice, what happens when you connect to your soul to change the outlook on your body. And we need to focus on that and less on who's on the front of that horrible magazine Yoga Journal, or who's on the front of these mainstream covers that instantly become a celebrity based on what they look like, but not on what they're offering their communities.
Absolutely. That's such a good point that, yoga is really about the internal. It's about,
right.
It's about mind and body, but it's not about body from the outside in. It's about body from the inside out, right? Feeling and awareness and being in your body, and making it about the looks, and the fashion industry co-ops everything.
Everything, all the time.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And the quote wellness industry too, right? It's like this two-headed hydra. Oh,
that's a perfect image. I just see that come up. And it's true, because the wellness industry is just a euphemism for the diet culture, right? It's just a euphemism for that. So we went from, what was it, fen-phen and ephedra and cottage cheese and, I don't know, peaches or whatever the hell people were eating, to juice fasts and CrossFit. Like, it's just evolved. And I got that analogy from an amazing body positive fashion blogger, warrior, if you want to call her, Jess Baker, Milton Baker. And she's got a book out called The Things They Don't Tell Fat Girls.
Love it.
I read the book twice because I'm such a fan. And she makes that point in her book. And I just, when she made that point, it just occurred to me, the wellness industry is just a rebranding, because people are getting hip to the bullshit, right? So people are getting hip to so we have to switch it up so that we can continue to fool people into thinking that, I'm going to say it again, you're not good enough. And I'm here to tell you, you are good enough. So not just that off. That's somebody else telling you that. That's not actually what deep in your soul you believe, right?
Totally. Yeah, I think that everything in capitalism really thrives on telling you you're not good enough and you need something to fix it, right?
Yeah,
Like any product that they're selling you that's how it's marketed.
absolutely. And I tell people all the time, they're not really interested in your well being. They're interested in selling you something so that they can pay off their shareholders. So just keep that in mind when you think you need this.
Hmm. That's a great distillation of really what's going on. It's like, no, this is actually about the bottom line here.
Yeah.
This is not about you.
Yeah. No, as sad as that is, it's true.
It is. Yeah. Because I mean, I think some individual practitioners within the wellness industry are well meaning, of course, but like just don't understand how this practice or vision of wellness is actually harming people.
It is. It's funny because whether they're willfully ignorant or they've just really bought into the culture. Like I've been reading, I'm on the second go round. When I love a book, I read it twice because I usually skim it really fast the first time because I'm like, where's the juicy parts? And then I go back and go back through it. But I've been reading Dr. Linda Bacon's work, Health at Every Size. And it's just eye opening when people present the truth without an agenda to sell you something, right? Like, here are the facts. And how many healthcare professionals are skewed by diet industry culture and possibly don't even know, but they think they're being well meaning. And I've been really fortunate where I am to have a doctor that's never been caught up in that, right? Like, has never been focused on that. But so many people have doctors who are steeped in that and are not actually looking out for their best health intentions, even though they're meaning to, right? Like, it's so pervasive. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think that's been especially a trend in the last 10 or 15 years of like using BMI to,
Oh,
shame people basically and tell them they're not well because they fall somewhere on a chart. And now that's really codified at least in the US, there's requirements now that doctors talk to people above a certain BMI about their weight, which is horrifying.
it is horrifying. And the fact that they've made obesity a disease, when they make something a disease like that, they can fund research and then they can fund medication, right? For that research. So it's a trick.
Mhm. Yep, follow the money.
Follow the money. It's a trick. But
Yeah.
most of us aren't paying attention, right? Most of us are in survival mode. So because we're in survival mode trying to get to the next place in our lives, we're not paying attention. And that's where yoga comes in. I think yoga pulls you out of survival mode and puts you, in a place where you have an opportunity to observe more, right? So, I think that's why I always think that people are just willfully being ignorant, but then it occurs to me that people are just trying to live, or people are just trying to pay their bills, or people are just trying to look after their kids, and they're not paying attention to the messages. But yeah, that's another link that I found, is that once you declare something a disease, you can get a study and then you can get money and you can get a drug. And then somebody makes a whole lot of money off of this whole idea of wellness. And we're actually helping you, but we're not. We're actually injuring you, because we saw this whole explosion of that bypass surgery, right? But nobody's really talking about how many people are dying from that and the health complications of stapling somebody's stomach in half. Like, it's a bizarre like cycle of, and there's never any truth. Like, again, I'm just so grateful to Dr. Linda Bacon for putting the facts out there, and they're qualitative, quantitative facts, so you can look at them.
Mhm.
There's no hidden agenda. Here's what the truth is.
Yeah, she's not even selling a program or anything.
Right?
It's like it's pretty
Exactly.
amazing.
Here are the facts, make your own decisions. And
Yeah.
so, you know what I mean? Man, I just wish that I live in a bubble, because the people I hang out with and the people I talk to know about it, right? And
Right.
we talk
Same.
about it. So that I just think everybody knows about it and everybody talks about it. And then somebody starts talking to me about diet culture, says something to me, and then I'm like,
Mm,
what?
I know.
Stop it. Stop that. And then I have to feel like I have to educate them, because I can't have them going around saying this, because they're gonna pick up more followers, and that's not what we want.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I feel like that's a mission of mine as well. Like if someone writes to me and pitches me for the podcast or, whatever, and is like, here's my website and I sell weight loss, I always feel compelled to be like, hey, just FYI, like this isn't a fit for me. And here's the message you're putting out there, because people often don't even realize it. Like I think aside from the people who just like listen to half an episode and we're like, we're going to just blast out every podcast that is related to health and pitch them. Like if someone is actually listening, I think they get that health at every size and body positivity and anti-weight stigma are important, but they don't necessarily see how their work is contributing to the status quo or to body negativity. It's just that connection sometimes is not obvious until you point it out to someone.
It's true. It's true. And I feel as a person who does this kind of work like yourself, it's important. I pick my battles, to be honest, because not everybody wants to hear what I want to say, even though I want everybody to hear what I want to say. So it's hard. It's sometimes like you want to just shake people. Like, you don't understand. But yeah, I get a lot of that. I get people reaching out to me constantly wanting to do some kind of cleanse or fast. And the reaction they get back from me is not a good one. Sometimes I'm nice and kind and I practice ahimsa. And sometimes I practice fire.
Mm.
I practice tapas. I get fiery.
Yeah. Which there's totally a place for that, I think, in this work, especially when someone comes at you in a fiery way as well.
Yeah, it's all about balance.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. Well, going back to your story, because I'm curious how you got from early stage recovery to yoga and to body positivity, because it sounds like that wasn't necessarily, obviously, in your home growing up, body positivity wasn't there. And then I don't know about your eating disorder treatment, but I know that most eating disorder treatment, unfortunately, has limitations in that regard.
Yeah, I talked about my story a few years ago for an organization called Shepherd Pratt. They have a eating disorders and recovery center in Baltimore. And then going back through my story, I kind of surprised myself. I came to a point with my treatment where I was just like, okay, I see the light almost. Like, people have aha moments. I'm like, okay, I'm going to die, or I'm going to be miserable, or I need to figure this out. And I came to my yoga mat. So my mother had been teaching me yoga since I was about 3 years old. My parents are immigrants. I'm a first generation Canadian, and my mother didn't drive when they came to this country. And she was at the time at home with 3 kids under the age of 4 in a, at the time, a rural community. When I go back to that community now, it's part of a bigger, Toronto is slowly encroaching in on it. So it's become a much bigger community. But at the time it wasn't. It was farms, and there was no buses, and there were dirt roads, and, there were these new subdivisions just popping up in the middle of nowhere. And my mom was pretty isolated. So she had picked up this book called Stay Young with Yoga. It's no longer in print. And that was certainly the message, because we know when yoga came to the West and was picked up by a lot of celebrity culture, it was really this fitness tool to make you young and to stay flexible. And my mom's like, okay, let's do this because I can do it at home. It doesn't require a lot of equipment. And so we did this practice together. So my brother and sister are twins, and I distinctly remember her having this basket. It was almost like a bassinet, but it was a basket with 2 handles, almost like a laundry basket. And she would put my brother and sister in the basket and put them next to the couch, and we would do this yoga practice. And the more she started to do it, and the more she felt better about herself, the more she dove into like the philosophy. And she taught me to meditate. She taught me to be still. And it just kind of evolved that whole time. And I always practiced yoga on and off throughout my life, whether it was an asana practice or meditation or mindfulness. It was always kind of a part of my life. As I got through high school, it kind of dropped off because it wasn't a mainstream thing when I was in high school in the 80s, like it is now. There was no such thing as, a commercial yoga mat, or I couldn't go to the store and buy a yoga outfit. There weren't outlets dedicated to yoga in the way that it is now. So because I was kind of the only person doing it amongst my friends, it kind of just fell by the wayside, and I picked up other things, right? So, I started running or whatever. I picked up other forms of physical activity. But when I was coming back through my recovery, it kind of made its way back. It's the one thing that I've never fallen out of love with and always seemed to gravitate back to. I think because it was introduced to me so young in my life. And I always felt such a connection to it. So it really didn't start to take hold until in my 30s. Like it didn't really start to really connect for me. I was moving my body. I wanted to be in my body and not in my head. So that's why I was practicing while I was recovering. And then when I came to full recovery, my husband and I decided we'd start to have kids. And that became a little bit of a trigger for me because I'm going to gain weight, right? My body's going to change. And what is that going to look like? And it was something that made me nervous. And I remember talking to my dietitian about it and saying to her, I'm not sure about this. And she said, once you're growing another life, your perspective will change. And I thought, I'm not really sure that's true. So I kind of dove back into my yoga practice at that point because always for me, I spent a lot of time in my head and I want to be in my body more. And I find that parts of my practice, particularly the asana or the poses part, pulls me out of my head and into my body and gives me an appreciation for it. So I got back to it for that. Then it really blossomed for me. Then it really started to make sense for me. And I remember my yoga mentor had said to me, I had a man for a yoga mentor and I had an older man. And my first yoga teacher outside of my mother identified as gay, and was an older woman. So my introduction to yoga wasn't by somebody in their 20s who was amazingly flexible and was a guru at 25 or 26 or whenever they're teaching teacher training. My teachers were much older. My teachers were much more established. So I remember my mentor, Bill, saying to me, it would be nice if you're going to offer yoga in the community that you say yoga for everybody else, right? Like, because every other studio in my community was doing a hot, fast, Ashtanga Vinyasa practice that you had to be pretty much able-bodied to get to, right? Or have no real physical limitations. And if you're practicing a fast, hot practice, in a larger body, in a body that's practicing with a disability, in an older body, in a body that has gender fluidity, it sometimes does not feel safe or it doesn't lend to having a positive experience in your body, right? Because all of a sudden I can't do what everybody else is doing. And we are creatures that compare ourselves because we've been conditioned and taught to compare yourself because once again, you're not good enough. The person next to you is better, whatever. So it becomes this kind of downward, I call it the downward spiral on your mat because you're in this and you're looking around, nobody looks like you. You can't do these poses. The teacher's oblivious to you or doesn't know how to work with you, or is just, annoyed that you're in their class because you're slowing it down or whatever the case may be. And I remember having a conversation with him about offering something a little bit different, right? Offering a place that was a space where people didn't have to fit this stereotypical idea of what a yogi looks like. And so I thought, what a great idea. Because initially, when I opened my studio, I was using a lot of stock photo imagery because I was worried if I put myself on a poster, not looking like the stereotype, being an abundant Black woman with an abundant body, people are going to be like, what could she possibly know about yoga? Because that's how we discriminate against fatness, right? Because if you're fat, clearly you're whatever, unhealthy or stupid or greedy or whatever it is the negative fat phobias that we have. So it took me a while and I put myself out there, and then an amazing thing happened. When I put my picture up there, the people who didn't feel brave or safe in other spaces showed up. And it gave me an opportunity to show them yoga can be done in a body that has injuries, or a body that is old, or a body that has limitations, or a body that has disabilities. And it made it a normal thing that anybody can be a yoga body. And I began writing about this, and I wrote an article for Elephant Journal, which is kind of what started me on the yoga body positivity path. Was I wrote this Elephant Journal article called, and it's the article title is clickbait. It's Yoga Isn't Just for Skinny White Girls. And
It definitely would get me to click. I'm like, ooh, yeah.
I published this article, put it up, and went about my day. And I came back to check to see if anybody was curious in it, and it exploded. Like, I mean, I think I don't know how many views it's had now, but this was 2012. This is before we were really in the push of yoga body positivity. And a couple people reached out to me based on this article. One of them was Anna Guest Jelly, who is the founder and creator of Curvy Yoga, and she was the first person I saw that had a public platform that showed her and people like us doing yoga poses, like these beautiful printed pictures that are usually reserved for skinny white girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
and here we are with big people in these. It's the first time I saw that. And she was kind of like an inspiration to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's somebody else out there doing this. I just thought there's fat people out there who want to do yoga. There's older people out there who want to do yoga. Where do we go? Like, what do we do? There must be a place for us, right? And that was the first time I'd ever seen this beautiful imagery around body size in yoga. And she had a really good friend who I noticed was like retweeting my stuff on Twitter all the time. And I reached out to her, and her name is Melanie Klein. And then we became friends. We talked back and forth. I remember sending her a message on Twitter and saying, thank you for tweeting my stuff. I hope one day we get to meet in person. Now we're great friends. I mean, I just got off a text with her. I have seen her several times in my life. We created the Yoga and Body Image Coalition together. She published a book along with Anna Guest Jelly, and I contributed to that book. A second volume is coming out shortly, and it's called Yoga and Body Image, and it's 25 stories of beauty and bravery. And it's everybody sharing their experience in whatever bodies they practice in. And that's how it catapulted. That one article changed everything. Like, all of a sudden, all these people were like, I feel this way. This is my experience. And then, people who weren't in bodies that were larger were like, even though I'm not in a larger body, this experience is not exclusive to people in a larger body. And I said, I never said it was. It just was, this is my experience. And so it just started this broader conversation that rolled into this, dare I say, movement to, just start to enlighten people on the fact that anybody is allowed and invited to show up to the mat, no matter what. And this limited idea of who shows up to do yoga is wrong and is discriminatory and really alienates a whole group of people. And that's not what yoga is about. The idea is oneness. The idea is unity. And I just don't understand how a practice that was supposed to be about unity became so exclusive. So it became my mission and the mission of the Yoga and Body Image Coalition to start changing that imagery and start changing that narrative and start just kind of consolidating everybody who is doing this work and amplifying our voices together. So that was a big part of why we created that. And it just added, I think, more power and credibility to the message when there were so many people talking about it. And I liken it to standing on the side of a mountain and screaming off into nothingness a message that you think is important, just one person. Nobody hears it. But if a group of people stand up there, it all of a sudden gets traction. So I found that it was really important to just really elevate the voices that were out there. And this is how it came about. And now when I go on places like Instagram or Facebook, there are so many people out there doing this work. And I hope that our introduction or our standing up and saying this is okay has inspired them to do the same, right? So I think it's so important.
Yeah, it's like you open the gates for something that didn't exist.
Yeah.
It really is so central to the message of yoga too. Doesn't yoga literally mean
Union?
Union? Yeah, exactly. It's like, right.
And then asana literally means seat. So it's to take a seat in that unity or to take a seat in that oneness. And the oneness isn't for rich people. And the oneness isn't for able-bodied people. And the oneness isn't for mainstream yoga culture to define. Like, how dare you? I get so irate about that. How dare you get to define it? How dare you get to promote who's considered a celebrity based on an aesthetic and not what they actually bring to the practice? So it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating how that got co-opted so early in the process of yoga becoming. I mean, I guess that maybe is how it became mainstream, is that it was presented in this very sort of American, like the same person who is being used to sell yoga is being used to sell toothpaste and clothes
Yes.
and makeup and
Yes.
all of that other stuff, right? So
Exactly. And then the co-option of the body positive movement by diet culture. How dare you? Like that kind of stuff makes me nuts. Like makes me ridiculously angry because I'm like, who said you get to do that?
totally. And this message is, they have to know that this message arose to counter what they were selling, right? Like
Yes.
they have to.
And that's why they co-opted it because
Yeah.
we can grab it and switch it back around because we're making too much money on this and we can't let them get it back. Right.
Mhm.
But they don't understand we're strong and we're tired, right? Like we're tired. We're not going to sit by and let you determine how our lives are going to go. That's done. You had your heyday and it's over.
Yes, we're over
Yeah.
it. And we see through the bullshit too, because I
Yeah.
think it's so, once you start down this rabbit hole of true body positivity and you start learning and hearing people like you and Linda Bacon and, you know, all of these amazing voices out there shouting the true body positive message, it's like, okay, so clearly Weight Watchers saying it's body positive, like, doesn't hold water based on everything else I know, right? Like,
Exactly.
oh, that
I
kills
just
me.
have to laugh. It kills me so much, especially since just before Christmas, they put up this body shaming garbage advertisement
Ugh.
and got dragged on social media. And I just thought, you guys are like so clueless. Like,
So
seriously,
clueless.
you do not have, if your marketing people missed the boat because they got dragged on social
Mhm. Yeah, it's complete lack of awareness.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it seems to be rampant in those types of industries. Like they just are behind. They don't get it. They don't get that shaming people and that aspirational marketing. And I call it aspirational marketing and I spell it ASS for aspirational marketing. Doesn't work. Nobody's buying it.
No.
And if we buy it for a minute and then somebody goes, hey, that's what's wrong with this. And we're like,
Mm.
okay, no.
Right. Right. Or we figure it out because we try whatever they're selling and it doesn't work. And it's again another failed diet or another trip down the disordered eating rabbit hole. And it's like
Right?
you wake up and sort of say, I can't keep doing this.
It's true.
There's got to be another way.
It's eroding my soul. This stuff erodes your soul. And so that's why we need the yoga because it's going to supercharge your soul and it's going to make you aware that this is not for you. Like this message is not for you. And make sure other people know that message is not for them either.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful to see people like marketing this alternative, you know, like you said with
Yep.
when you discovered Anna Gasgelli's like beautiful images of people in larger bodies practicing yoga. It's like you can do the beautiful visual things that pull people in, but it's not used in service of shame. It's used in service of good, you know, and helping
Yeah.
people actually lead back to their true selves.
And I wish the people who were selling that garbage the other way could just figure that out.
Yeah,
That this is not how we evolve humanity.
right. And it's not, selling with this aspirational, I love that so much, image of what people should look like is not sustainable.
No, it's not going to work. But I
No.
mean, let them lose millions of dollars trying to figure it out. Like, seriously, because that's the only time they truly pay attention is when it affects their bottom line.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how that shifts over the next 10 years or so because, it's like right now they're trying to co-opt body positivity and figure out new ways of selling like wellness and health because people are saying they want that. And the diet industry is turning that into its own kind of twisted message of what wellness and health look like. But what happens when we reject that too and we say, no, I want to pursue something that's more authentic to me?
Yeah.
What if I want to pursue if people en masse are like trying to get back to intuitive eating and honor their intuition and honor their bodies and accept their bodies wherever they are? What happens to the diet industry then?
I hope it goes away. Like, I just am waiting for it to implode. At some point, it has to go away. We've been running in this hamster wheel since the 60s, right? When this became a thing, when diet culture became a way to keep women from engaging their power. If we could have women be worried about what wrinkles and their weight and sell them this miracle cream or whatever it is that, diet culture or mainstream patriarchal media wants to do to keep us distracted. We won't be distracted for long because if we're noticing now, it's the rise of the feminine divine cycle. So you're noticing women stepping to the forefront in ways that are empowered and positive, and men who aren't fragile or threatened by that are also jumping on and speaking up. Like there's so much shifting so quickly. So there's going to be a time where they're just hopefully going to fall by the wayside. The more we're talking about this, the more we're reading, the more education's out there, the more people are doing this kind of work, they're going to have to catch on. They're going to have to find some other way to make their money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think your work and the work of people in this movement, I think shows that there is a market for it. Like there are people, like I'm making a living doing what I do, I'm not like having shareholders or trying to make millions or whatever, but I'm supporting myself and living comfortably and not having to be scared because people want this message and are coming to me for it. And that's true for many of my colleagues as well. I think probably the shift from selling weight loss to selling body positivity or, not selling, but like working within the field and making that your career, that's a tough leap because I think it brings up a lot of fear for people. Like I've been making money on this weight loss thing or this quote wellness thing that's actually harming people. What's the alternative? And am I actually going to be able to support myself? But for so many people, I see the answer is yes, like, and more so, that there's even a bigger market for it.
Absolutely. But, change is always scary, but that's what makes us grow. And we know better now, and more people are knowing better. To watch people push back against diet culture is empowering. Like there's a whole bunch of people on Instagram right now who are challenging this bullshit resolution culture that happens every January where people decide they're going to make huge changes by writing down 10 things that they dislike about themselves and making an effort to change them. And change doesn't happen in huge leaps like that. Change happens with thousands of little steps, right? Change happens incrementally, and people don't get that. That's why nobody can hold on to their resolutions, right? And resolutions are just designed to make you feel bad. And when you feel bad, what is the outward way that you make yourself feel better? Retailers are hoping you'll go buy something or go on a vacation or whatever, instead of, actually getting to know yourself, because that will make you feel better because you'll learn that you don't respond to this stuff and there's more to life than this stuff. So I think that's really interesting, but I'm watching Instagrammers, a lot of people who are registered dietitians or mindful holistic healers, putting up a lot of great pictures. There's been this push to do different before and after pictures. There was a woman up there who had struggled with an eating disorder, and she put up her before and after picture. And I thought how brave of her to put that up there, and that her picture of her in recovery. And I made sure that it can be triggering, and I did write trigger warning. So be responsible for your trigger. But I mean, this is a good before and after story. And I said to her, how brave of you. And people making those stories when they were really hating their bodies and struggling to be what society thought they should look like versus loving their bodies and just embracing where they're at and putting those before and afters up and seeing how they look happy. Do you know what I mean? Seeing how their soul shines because they're not in a place of self-hate. And I think what we don't understand is if we're in a place that we want to heal ourselves, we have to learn you can't heal a body you hate.
Mm-hmm.
We can't. Like it has to change. Like anything, it has to change. This is broken and it has to change.
Yeah, that's very true, that loving your body or accepting your body at least and respecting it is such a foundation for any lasting change, for any change in your health and your well-being and, recovering your relationship with food.
It's true. And in a world that profits, and this is a meme that goes around on Facebook and all social media quite frequently, in a world that profits from our self-hate, it's a radical act of defiance. And it's a dismantling of capitalist culture to say, hey, I love my body. That scares them.
Right. Right.
We're pushing back. And I love that. Like it just, whenever I see that, I share that with gusto because I'm thinking to myself, like, Yeah, I'm pushing back. That's my kind of thing. I'm disrupting. I'm disrupting. So,
Right, because it's a real challenge to the system, and the system will push back too. Like the system will make you feel bad about that, a lot of times. Like you'll get pushback from the outside culture, diet culture will send you messages that what you're doing is wrong. Even friends and
right.
family who are participating in diet culture will send you that message, right? But just kind of know that when you are pushing back, that's going to happen. And so that actually is just part of the process. It's not to say like go back in your corner, like you don't have to listen to those voices. You can keep pushing forward and eventually they'll just roll off you.
It's true. And it's true. And because there was a time when I would get a lot of messaging around, aren't you promoting?
Mm, right.
Right. And I would say to them, so we've spent our entire diet culture life body shaming and we see the damage it's done. Okay. So if I'm promoting diet culture, aren't I promoting?
Right.
Right? Like there's two sides to that. So you've done this and it hasn't worked and it's created chronic health problems. It's killed people, this whole culture. So I'm deciding not to promote that and I'm the problem. Okay. So that's okay. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, but I don't need your comment. And that's the beauty of social media or people pushing back, like you said, you don't have to listen and you just delete it. Like if it's not working for you, you don't have to weigh in and you don't have to educate those people. Like it's amazing
Yeah.
to me. And it's easy for those people to speak up because often they're speaking up from their own self-hate.
Hmm. Yeah, when people are really invested in their own self-hate, I think it's hard for them to see people who are rejecting that.
Yes, and it's scary for them somehow. I don't understand. Somehow me being okay with my body threatens them. It's a very interesting dynamic and it's a very well orchestrated conditioning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very well done.
Yeah, well, I think when people buy in, that's like a core value to them. It feels like their core value is being shaken. The recent Ann Coulter post where she was like, there would be no protests without fat girls. It's
Yeah.
like I love the fat positive movement's response to that, which is like, hell yeah, like we're leading the charge here. But
That's right.
also like it's like she says that I think from a place of buying in so much to diet culture, like,
Yeah.
just sort of towing the line of what the mainstream wants a woman to look like.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved when that happened. I don't, she always steps in it anyway, but
Yeah.
but I thought that was perfect when that culture said, "Yeah, hell yeah,
Yep.
fat girls rule," and then all these pictures up on Instagram. I was like, "Get it, man! You
So
don't know what you
cool.
step. Yeah, what you think was going to happen?" I love it when people try come for me, right? Try to come for me. My favorite saying is, "Don't come for me unless I call for you," because it's
Mm.
not going to be pretty.
Right. Because there really is a movement to back us up. Like,
Yeah,
we're not just shouting into the wind here. And I think that's the mistake that people sometimes make in diet culture and defending diet culture is like, well, this person's just going to back down and then that's it.
and then we circle the wagons and everybody gets on board. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of people who are in celebrity culture who are also speaking up. Like you remember a while ago, I think Jennifer Aniston
Yeah.
wrote a piece for Huff Post, I believe, and just laid it out. And I thought to myself, good. You know what I mean? We need voices like that too, because people are so invested in celebrity culture. So yeah, things are changing and people are scared. So that pushback you see, but any great movement has that. So if we think back to the civil rights movement over 50, how long, 55 years maybe since the civil rights movement, same thing happened, right? People stood up, wanted their humanity identified, wanted the same rights as everybody else. And we saw the pushback. We have video of what the pushback looked like. And then it moved forward. But all great movements have that. And that's how progress happens. People start pushing back, the bigger entity tries to silence them, and the people organize and push back harder, and then change happens. So we just have to stand our ground.
Yeah. And this really is a social justice movement. The movement of size acceptance is an
Mhm.
extension of civil rights. It's sort of
Mhm.
one of the later ones to be addressed, but very important nonetheless.
It is all intersectional. You cannot talk about body positivity and not talk about racial discrimination and not talk about LGBTQ rights, transphobia, homophobia. All of that stuff is linked to the body positive movement. Because if you look at the body positive movement, it's saying all these bodies are not recognized.
Mm-hmm.
All these bodies are viewed negatively. All these bodies don't deserve the same rights and justice as these bodies over here. These are good bodies. These are bad bodies. And so you can't talk about body positivity and not talk about all those other things. I think sometimes there are problems with the body positive movement in that people don't understand. It's not just advocating for size. It's also advocating for all bodies, like everybody who's part of this, who's an extension of this humanity, right? So it's huge. This thing is bigger than all of us.
Absolutely. And I think that is such an important aspect of the body positive movement to recognize and keep talking about, because people, like, I have spoken out about the election on the podcast, and, most people were very supportive and kind of had similar feelings. And I got a lot of thank yous, but I also got some really negative messages of like, why bring politics into this, And I had even said, like, the first time I even talked about it, it was like, this is inseparable from the body positive movement. We can't, it was literally an issue in the debates like that.
Right?
But then beyond that too, it's like the worldview of that side or that person. I don't even want to speak his name because it gives it power, but his like view on people who are not white men, basically, is exactly what we need to fight against, and exactly what we need to push back against that worldview if we're going to have true equality for all bodies, whatever size, whatever gender, whatever color, whatever religion, whatever.
Yep, it's true. And people get all caught up in that. So I fell apart when I woke up and I saw the election results. Even though I live in Canada, Canada's connected to America. What goes on in America affects us greatly here. We have a population of 30 million people, right? We're 10% of your population. So for us as Canadians, we feel like we are an expert in US culture because we are inundated by it, and we sleep next to a giant, right? And at any time you can roll over and crush us. So
yeah. Good analogy.
We are fully aware of that as Canadians. I think we're hyper aware of that. So for me as a Canadian, I was devastated, and I put a post on my social media to my detriment. Like, I just lost my stuff. I had a human moment, and some people weighed in and understood where I was coming from and had no problem with what I was saying. But other people were just, I can't tell you how many people have followed me, called me a shitty Canadian. It's just like, people were so angry at me. But it was me speaking my truth around those feelings I had about, it's not just about America. It's about every place America influences. And that's a big place. That's a lot of influence when we elect somebody who can't see everybody, doesn't care to see everybody, and is going to use the office of the presidency to line his pockets and the pockets of his cronies. So I think it's all coming to fruition. All those people who thought something great was going to happen, they're going to have even less.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is, hopefully this is a part of the larger movement, like you said, where, because it did really feel through the last 8 years, like things are moving forward. So much progress is happening with social justice and gay rights and all of that. And it just felt like, okay, we're in this sort of moment of progress and society is getting it. And then this happened, which is the pushback. I feel like this is maybe the inevitable pushback of a culture that doesn't want to accept and see and open up to what's really going on.
I heard a reporter say on the CBC, it's white supremacy patriarchal's last stand. This is their last grasp at, okay, we have to control everything, or, okay, we need to roll back women's rights and gay rights, and anybody who's not white needs to step in line, or whatever it is. It's their last hold. And it can't hold, because as the population changes and as we just get more diverse, white supremacy becomes ridiculous. It's always been ridiculous and stupid, but it just becomes so obvious that it's not working and it's actually detrimental to everybody, even though a large group of people benefit from it. It's actually in the long run not helping anyone. And we will learn because it seems to be that we never want to learn the lesson the first time. We want to learn the lesson many times. So, as a person of color in my experience, I just grab the torch from my forefathers and I carry it forward as far as I can until I pass it off to somebody else. And I was just hoping in 2016 that we were like at the end, closer to the end. But I'm just finding we're kind of back in the middle. So we fell asleep, I think, in the 80s and 90s. We were busy, not necessarily my generation. I'm a Generation Xer, but the baby boomers were busy being yuppies. And I think we kind of dropped some balls got dropped. I know they like to blame the millennials for all the problems in the world, but really, people, the baby boomers have a lot to do with what's going on in the world. And you have to stop dogging the millennials because they're the ones who are going to save us. Like I said, I'm a Gen Xer. I don't know where you fall in the spectrum.
I'm on the border.
Are you?
Yeah. So I was born in 81. So in some classifications, I'm a Gen Xer. In some classifications, I'm a millennial. So
yeah, you are right on the line, right? Mm-hmm. So people have to stop dogging the millennials because they're the ones who are going to save us. So,
and when you look at the electoral map, if only millennials voted, right? It's like clearly this is what the next generation wants us to be progressive.
Yes. They're the least racist, the least sexist, the least classist group of people. So we need them as much as people want to dog them out. And again, it's just from fear. And they're just a different culture than what we're used to. And when we don't understand it, we're afraid of it, or we find a reason to discredit it. But I was talking about this with my girlfriend yesterday about we need to stop with these classifying them and complaining and all that stuff, because each generation factored into what soup we're sitting in now. When I, made my post about the US election all those weeks ago, I said people were coming for me and I was defending my point. I said, if you're looking for an apology, it's not going to happen. But this has been, 8 or 10 or 20 years in the making to get to this point, right? Things have been in play to allow this to happen. This isn't just a one-off thing. Like, resentment had been building, the middle class had been losing ground. A lot of stuff was happening. People were getting scared. People are scared because the population demographic is going to change. And sooner rather than later, white will not be the majority. And that scares the shit out of people. And I think there's a whole bunch of people out there that somehow believe that they're going to lose their rights and freedoms because there's a culture of suppressing the rights and freedoms of minority groups, women, people of color, the LGBT community, and somehow we're all going to rise up and take and something's going to happen. That's not going to happen. Majority of the wealth is going to still stay with that particular demographic of people, but we're all just trying to fight for our humanity. So try not to be scared. Once you figure out we're not that different, you can get over your fear of us. We all want the same things.
Yeah, that's so well said.
We all want to be free. Like, we all want the freedoms that you have, and sharing the freedoms that you have always had does not oppress you. Although it may feel like you have to give something up, it may feel oppressive to you, but it's not. It is what humanity is about. And if we can't learn this, we're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's so true that when as white supremacy dies, it's hopeful, imminent death.
Yeah. Sooner rather than later, please.
Yes, please. Oh my God. That actually opens up so much for all of us,
Yes.
I mean, I'm white, but I say I'm anti-white supremacy, both just sort of for moral reasons and also for reasons that it hurts, especially when it comes to bodies. The beauty ideal, quote unquote, that we have in this culture is a white, young beauty ideal. It's sort of like this one way, does not allow for people of color to be a part of what's considered beautiful, doesn't allow older people to be a part of what's considered beautiful, and doesn't allow even many white people to be part of what's considered beautiful. So it oppresses white people too. It oppresses everybody. It's not about actual race or ethnicity as much as it is about humanity and wanting to give everyone equal access to be who they are and be able to flourish.
And it does not oppress you individually or as a collective to give everybody the same rights you already have.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. The pie is not limited, right?
It's not. And it surprises me how many people. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine who we have this back and forth battle because she thinks she's progressive, but really she's super unaware. And I've told her that several times. I think you are woefully misinformed. That's what I say. So our relationship is strained, and I'm not sure that it will ever find its way back to where it was because I just put up with a lot of nonsense. I don't know why. And then my bucket got full. I'm like, listen, I have to tell you about yourself. But she said something like she has two sons who are somehow going to be impacted because people of color are going to get the jobs that they would ordinarily get. And I think to myself, they would just get them because they're white and they already come from privilege. She's very well off. She's probably in the top 25% of wage earners, and her kids have had a really sweet kind of life. And she goes, but I believe in affirmative action, even though it affects my sons negatively. And I just want to shake her because you know who affirmative action has helped the most? Women. There's this study from Harvard, a study on who affirmative action actually helped. It didn't actually help Black folks as much as it helped women. Affirmative action helped everybody.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. But, and I send her the study, but she won't read it. So, but then she'll make these other comments. So I just am like shaking my head hard. Like affirmative action didn't actually do anything for people of color in a way that they thought it would, but it certainly helped feminism and it certainly helped women, and especially white women. Affirmative action had the greatest impact on that group. But yet we want to blame Black folks for benefiting from affirmative action. It's amazing to me. But nobody wants to do the research and look it up. There's a study, honest to God.
Yeah. Well, I'll link to it in the show notes too for anyone who's interested.
Look it up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, I think it's totally misguided and misinformed for people to think that they're going to have something taken away by other people, other groups being given more rights. It's just the world is changing, the world, we don't know what kind of jobs or industry or whatever come next.
There's enough for everybody. I'm sure her sons are going to get a great job, even though Black people are in the workforce. I have to shake my head. And then, I say that's a very limited view of the world, and that particular view, not you, that particular view can be considered racist or bigoted or that particular view. And then people take that as, oh, you called me a racist. I'm like, no, I said what you did. That's that view.
Yes.
Not you, that view. And it blows my mind, to be honest. And then I say to myself, I don't need to have these conversations with people who don't get it. I just need to move on.
Yeah. Going back to the pick your battles thing, right? It's
right, exactly.
Because you have to preserve enough energy to do the bigger work, not just get caught up in these little conflicts.
These little arguments over nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not over nothing, but over that particular thing.
Right. Yeah. And the language people use, I think, is even if this crazy reversal of progress hadn't happened, right, we still were not living in a quote post-racial society like a lot of people tried to make it out to be.
I love that saying.
Ugh,
yeah.
Only
white folks say that. Only white folks say that.
Yeah.
The rest of us know better.
Yeah. It's even if things kept moving forward from there, that would still be something to continue addressing and continue, who knows how long it's going to take to truly eradicate racism from society.
I wonder if it's even possible, to be honest. I have my doubts.
Yeah, I know.
I think bigotry individually will never go away. I just think that may be part of human nature. I hope I'm wrong, but at least we can start to dismantle systemic racism. That we can hope, and hopefully that will change people's hearts. But I sometimes want to throw in the towel with these conversations. I have these conversations a lot, both on a public stage and on a private stage. And sometimes I'm just like, stop the world. I just want to get off.
I know. Oh, seriously. Well, I hope we can look to the millennials to save us, like
We,
that.
we need somebody.
If generations, continue growing up with a more progressive view than the previous generation, then hopefully that is something to look forward to, right?
So everybody stop dogging the millennials. We need them.
Exactly.
Just a plug for you guys. I'm plugging for you guys.
Woo! Go millennials.
Go millennials.
I know. I think a lot of my listeners are millennials, so they'll be happy to hear that. And I guess I am like half a millennial as well.
You are. You're 50-50. You're
50-50. Yeah, I know. I can claim both. It's kind of an interesting place to be. Although I'm much more of a Luddite than some of my millennial colleagues. I really am. I can't even. I just started a Facebook group recently, and like a free Facebook group. I had a paid one for my online course, but I just started a free one, and I was like resisting it for so long because I was like, my work-life balance,
Right.
I can't be on the computer all the time, but
Right. Yeah.
got to do it.
You got to do it. Sometimes you got to be on the computer all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes work-life balance is not all it's cut out to be, I guess.
It's true. Not when there's huge work for humanity that needs to be done. So you're like this warrior, right?
Yeah.
Social justice warrior. Some people make fun of me for that word, but that's okay. But
that's great.
Changing the world doesn't necessarily take a day off all the time.
No, it doesn't.
Or scheduled days off. It takes days off, but maybe not scheduled days off.
Right. It sort of like takes a breather when it needs to.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. Well, it's so great talking with you, and I really love your work. Can you tell us where people can find it and find you online?
Yeah, I'm at DianneBondyYoga.com. So there's a lot of my blogs. You can take yoga classes with me, that kind of thing. I also have an online studio called yogastea.com, and we are dedicated to bringing a diverse face to yoga. So we have a lot of teachers and students who are featured on this. We talked about the beautiful photography and imagery that Anne and Jess Skelly had created way back when there was nothing. I wanted to also see that in the yoga studio. So I have an online site that really is designed to be inviting and a safe and brave space for everybody to practice that. So that's Yogastea, YOGASTEYA.com. And you can check me out there.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll link to all those in the show notes too, so that people can find it easily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dianne. It's a pleasure talking with you.
It was awesome. May you have a blessed day, everyone.
So that's our show. Thanks again so much to our guests for being here and to you guys for listening. And we'll be back again next week with another brand new episode. Meanwhile, I'd love to stay in touch. And the best way to do that is via email. So you can go to christyharrison.com/email to sign up for my VIP list. I'll send you info about new episodes of the podcast as they drop, as well as exclusive sneak previews of new episodes, exclusive giveaways and other special deals on the products and services I offer, special tips on how to make peace with food and learn to trust your body, and a whole lot more. Sign up at christyharrison.com/email. You can also subscribe via iTunes and leave us a nice rating and review, which is a great way to get the word out about the podcast and help other people find these important messages. Just go to iTunes from your computer or your podcasts app, type in Food Psych to the search bar, click on the result that comes up under podcasts, and then click on ratings and reviews, and you can leave a rating and review right there. And I really appreciate all the 5-star reviews and wonderful ratings that we've gotten, because it's helped us climb really high right now in the rankings. So we're currently in the top 50 of all health podcasts, and that's really cool because we're competing against some of the diet mentality, sort of traditional weight management and body shaming types of messages that I'm trying to fight with this podcast. So we've really started to beat out a lot of the diety voices, and I'd love to continue climbing higher in the rankings to get this message out even further. So please leave us a nice rating and review. It's so very much appreciated. And thanks to everyone who's left reviews so far. The music you're hearing behind me now is by a band called AWOL, and the track is called Food, used under the Creative Commons license. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, stay psyched.
Stupid or scared, no work in the kitchen now. Who put you there in that perfect position now? Bullies want your food, and you ain't really beat. Have you ever went over your friend's house?